Hello and welcome to the Beyond the Essential Oil Recipe Summit. I'm Elizabeth Ashley, the Secret Healer, and today I'm so excited to be joined by the lovely Sue Pace. Hello Sue, how are you?
I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
I'm very excited because Sue and I haven't met before, so this is entirely new territory for us, isn't it, Sue?
It sure is.
So for those of you people who don't know anything about you, can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Sure. I've been a licensed paramedic in the U.S. I live in Connecticut on the East Coast. I've been a licensed paramedic for 35 years almost.
Wow.
I've been a registered nurse for about 25 years, and I've worked in very diverse settings. I've worked mostly in the emergency department. I think you call that casualty in the...
Yeah, or A&E, yes. Yeah.
And I've worked in the neonatal intensive care unit with teeny tiny babies that are as big as the palm of your hand.
Oh my goodness.
I've worked in a maximum security prison with murderers and arsonists and bad people.
Wow.
I've worked as a school nurse. I've worked as a home health care nurse. I've worked in hospice. But my first and probably most enduring love is emergency medicine or emergency nursing.
Did you know that my daughter is nearly qualified to be a paramedic?
Is she really?
She's in the last month of her training, yes. So she'll be watching this very eagerly, I'm sure.
Well, congratulations to her.
Yeah, she's done very well. It's been hard work. So you've had a very, very varied background. So of all of the different things that you did, which did you say was the thing that you enjoyed the most, the emergency medicine?
Probably, because I like making order out of chaos.
Right.
And I like being able to keep calm at times like this.
You're lovely and calm.
When my heart is beating a mile a minute, but, people will look at you afterwards and say, you looked so calm.
And you do. And you.
And that's what it's like in the emergency department. It's controlled chaos, and you can't show your patient and their families that you may be frightened for them or about what's about to happen. You have to hold it together for them because they need you to.
How amazing.
And that's what your daughter's going to do as a paramedic.
You're absolutely right. But I try not to think about it, so I don't like my head to go there at all. So when did you qualify as an aromatherapist, and how did that come about?
Well, that's kind of interesting. It was about 5.5 years ago. I went to a wellness fair in my local community, and it was touted as a complementary alternative health fair. Mm-hmm. So I walked in and I saw that there were Reiki practitioners and massage therapists and reflexologists. And then I came across an essential oil booth, and the woman selling the oils was a multi-level marketing representative. And she gave a very interesting presentation to a group of us and passed around oils for us to smell and talked about the things that they could do. And instantly inside, I felt sort of like this click, like, wow, this is really cool.
Yeah.
So I signed up on the spot, and I got my kit, and I went home. And I'm sure that the aromatherapists here will laugh because it was a kit of, I don't even remember exactly how many, maybe 25 oils.
Oh, nice.
And I opened every single one at the same time and sniffed them all. I got a raging headache. Yes. Was very nauseated. So I contacted the representative and said, wow, I don't feel good. Said, oh, well, I think you're detoxing.
No.
And I said, well, okay, I'm not sure from what, but okay. And I can't remember which oil I smelled, but I smelled one of them and I said, that doesn't smell very nice. I don't like it. And she said, well, the more you dislike it, the more your body needs it.
Oh.
And I said, really? And that didn't sound right to me, but okay. So what I did then was I went on to the internet and I looked for aromatherapy education. And I found our friends at AromaWeb, Wendy, and I found an essential oil safety group and started to educate myself. And it was at that point that I found that there were some differences, I guess, in what I was being taught by the company, which I had contracted with, and by people who practiced aromatherapy on a different level.
Sure.
So after a short time, I chose to disassociate myself with the company, not because I thought that their oils were bad or anything like that, just that I didn't agree with some of the tenets that they were putting forth about aromatherapy education.
Yeah, it's a shame. So how long ago did you say that was?
5.5 years.
Wow. And so who did you go and get qualified with in the end?
Well, my first certification was through Andrea Bouget's Aroma
Oh,
Heaven.
okay, yeah.
A clinical aromatherapist program.
Mm-hmm.
And I love Andrea, and I loved the way she made aromatherapy so accessible and so friendly. And I loved it. But when I was on AromaWeb, and when I was talking to other practitioners, they said, well, you really should learn from lots of different people. That's the best way. So I started buying books, and I took another class through Jane Buckle.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
She runs the Certified Clinical Aromatherapy Practitioner course for healthcare professionals.
She does.
Nurses, physicians, massage therapists, reflexologists, anybody who works in the medical field.
Mm-hmm.
And I studied under Kathy Duffy, one of her instructors,
Mm-hmm.
who was wonderful. And the course took about a year. It's presented in 4 in-person modules, whereas Andrea's program I could do in my pajamas with bedhead.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the Buckle program was 4 in-person modules spread over the course of a year. And you had to do case studies, and you had to give a presentation to a licensed medical provider. And mine was a physician who was a researcher. And he liked it so much that he urged me to try to get it published, my research.
Wow, congratulations.
Thanks. And which I did. I did in the International Journal of Professional Holistic Aromatherapy. I did.
And what did you present on?
It was on the use of a blend for restless leg syndrome.
Ah.
And it was a double-blind study. I had a group which was using just a plain balm, which was scented only with beeswax. And then I had the other group, which was the test group, which used a blend with sweet marjoram, lavender, and put me on the spot. I can't remember what else.
Was it clary sage? I seem to remember this trial.
It wasn't clary sage, but it will come to me, I'm sure.
It was still.
Anyway, there was a washout period, and I used some professionally accepted scales to measure the group's response to the therapies. And it turned out that the blend worked well. Yay.
Yeah.
in reducing.
I'm always surprised to you. Just whenever I make something, I go, do you know what? It worked.
I know. Yeah, I've had people say, wow, that stuff you made me works. Like they're really surprised. And I said, well, nobody's more surprised than me.
No.
But yeah, it worked, and it worked very well. As a matter of fact, Kathy Duffy, my instructor, just contacted me, and she said that some of her current students are thinking of replicating my trial to see if they can replicate the results. And I sure hope so.
Exciting, yeah.
That would be great.
Very, very good. So
And
today,
then,
there's more. Go on.
There's a little bit more.
Tell me more.
So I took a few online classes with Robert Tisserand with Tisserand Institute. And then in 2015, I took Mark Webb's aromatic medicine course in internal dose forms in Atlanta. And that was 2 in-person classes of 4 days apiece. And it was some of the most intense coursework, case studies, and research that I've ever done. And I know there were not too many of us who could make it through because it was so demanding, as it should be if you're going to practice aromatic medicine. I think 15 out of 45 or 50 of us actually qualified.
Wow.
In the first class.
He's got a tremendous mind, hasn't he, Mark?
Yes. Yes.
Nothing that comes out of his mouth is fluff, is it? It's just fact, fact. It takes.
I know. He's very fast paced, but he's very engaging, and he's got a terrific teaching style, and I learned a lot from him.
Definitely. So now I can see why you're interested in how the trends of the aromatherapy are going to evolve. So I'm fascinated to listen to this now, because obviously you've seen it evolve within proper medicine too. So that's exciting. So tell us about what you foresee happening then. Talk us through your presentation.
Well, thank you. I have come up with a few slides detailing what I think are some future trends and future concerns in the field of aromatherapy. I think, especially in the United States, we have really some specific challenges to our profession that you don't see in other countries, perhaps like the UK and Australia, where aromatherapy has been accepted as a helpful and useful complementary therapy for a lot longer than in the United States. And also, I'm not quite sure about how it works in the UK, but I know in Australia, certainly there are actual certifications and licensure that you can pursue to become a qualified practitioner. And that's what we lack in the United States, because here, you can have someone go through specific long-term education, like AromaHead, like the School for Aromatic Studies, like Liz Fulcher's course, Mark Webb's course, and they come out with a certification that says they're a certified aromatherapist or a certified clinical aromatherapy practitioner. But someone who goes to an 8-hour weekend class under one of an essential oil seller, essentially, and call themselves a certified aromatherapist after 8 hours. So since there's no recognized course load and licensure, that makes it difficult for us to gain, I think, respect and credibility as a profession here in the US. Also, practitioners here, many of them find it difficult to earn a living solely as an aromatherapist.
Oh yeah, I think that's the same everywhere.
Oh, is it really? I know that some of the aromatherapists I know work as reflexologists, Reiki practitioners, massage therapists, herbalists, or if you're like me, you work in something completely different, like nursing. I also teach and I write to supplement the income that I'm not making as an aromatherapist.
Yeah.
Sadly.
Yeah. I think there's more to it than that as well. I think it's not a case of there just not being enough money. It's not having enough stamina to stand and massage all day, or, you know, I think you do need to have quite a varied spectrum of things that you can do within aromatherapy or within your practice to be able to make the money at the end of the week, don't you?
Oh, I agree. Mm. I'm going to head to the next slide, and hopefully you can see my next slide, which is a lot of pretty book covers. I think before we discuss the challenges of the future, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge those who have brought us in aromatherapy to this point. Mm-hmm. There are a number of trailblazers that have brought aromatherapy to the forefront of consciousness in the 20th and 21st centuries. And these include people like Jean Rose, who wrote the 375 essential oils and hydrosols. Mm-hmm. She's practiced for half a century, and she's greatly influenced more than one generation of aromatherapists and herbalists.
Yeah.
And certainly Robert Tisserand is an author, teacher, essential oil safety expert with 40 plus years of experience. And we have their contemporaries, Len and Shirley Price, who I would love to study under Penny Price. I would love that.
Oh, so, well, Penny's actually talking on the summit, so you'll have to listen in to her. She does a wonderful talk about respiratory medicine.
Oh, wonderful. Well, I'll look forward to seeing that. Mm. And there's Martin Watt, Gabriel Moget, and many, many others from around the world who have given us the benefit of their expertise in aromatherapy.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, while I mention and I honor these aromatherapy practitioners, these pioneers, I'm also going to make a statement which I think is kind of hard to argue with, honestly. Despite everything these experts have brought to our field in decades of practice, the single largest force to bring aromatherapy into the mainstream consciousness, I think, are the multi-level marketing companies.
Absolutely right. We have a lot to thank them for.
Yes, and that is good. Mm. And so I don't want anyone to think that I'm bashing multi-level marketing companies here, because I don't intend it at all to do that.
Not on my watch, Sue. Not on my watch.
I mean, I do like to talk about the good and the bad. I'm mostly going to talk about the good. But with the advent of essential oils coming to the forefront of consumer consciousness, people are spending literally billions of dollars a year on essential oils. So I think one could make a reasonable argument that before the multi-level marketing companies came into the forefront, essential oils were essentially virtually unknown.
Yeah.
But now perhaps due in part to these two largest companies, essential oils are everywhere, including in pharmacies, at the chemist, big box stores like Walmart. And with each passing year, demand for essential oils is starting to outstrip supply.
Agreed.
And this in turn has produced another industry which isn't so great, which produces fraudulent or adulterated oils. And the demand for more product, I think, has led to pretty serious issues surrounding sustainability of the plants that surround the plants that provide these oils.
That's a wonderful picture of the sandalwood tree. Are those ladders going up the side of it?
It's an iron cage.
To protect it?
To protect it.
Wow.
And we'll talk about that. The demand for more oils has led to overharvesting, obviously, of precious resins like frankincense, which you see in the left corner of the screen, and rare trees like rosewood and sandalwood. Mm. Now, in some cases, such as with Indian sandalwood, the government has taken a protective role by making it a felony to illegally harvest sandalwood. But for smugglers, the hefty payoff that they get from harvesting a single tree illegally far outweighs the risk that they might get caught.
Exactly.
So in the beginning, when the Indian government was confronted with mass illegal harvesting, they surrounded sandalwood groves with barbed wire fences. Well, that didn't stop smugglers at all. The next step they took was to surround the trees themselves with barbed wire, but it made it
So
made
the
harvesting.
iron cage is to stop people smuggling it.
Exactly. So
Wow.
and the barbed wire surrounding the trees stunted the trees' growth.
Yeah.
So what they started doing was making either steel or iron cages to surround the trees. And so far, that seems to have worked very, very well. It grows with the tree. As the tree gets taller and taller, you can just build up on the cage. So that's a good thing.
I know, but that makes me want to cry.
I know.
That they have to do something so severe around such a beautiful thing to protect it. God, it's like the elephants. Oh dear. Move on, Sue, before I start crying. That's really upsetting.
I know. In the case of rosewood, which is in the center picture, that's another endangered species. There is a aromatherapist and researcher named Dr. Kelly Ablard, who I also believe is presenting.
She is. I'm very excited to hear what she's got to say because I know very little about this subject, I have to say.
She hopes to continue her conservation efforts, which are focused in Peru, in South America. While there, she documents the illegal harvesting of rosewood, and she has formed an initiative which collaborates with the native peoples there, which focuses on the sustainability of rosewood, the rosewood tree, because rosewood is very highly sought after especially for perfume.
It's beautifully fragranced, isn't it? Right through the wood.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
And furniture, I guess, in Korea, this wood is an extremely popular wood for furniture.
Well, it's beautiful. I have to say, we have a rosewood desk in our family. And under the CITES Convention, it can't be sold now. You know, right. It's stuck getting dusty in our house, but it's so beautiful. Really, really deep. Probably the same colour as my hair, actually. You know, deep red, rich, orangey red colour, which is just lovely. It's a beautiful thing.
Oh, it's absolutely gorgeous. And I do have a 30 ml bottle of rosewood, which I'm hoarding. And because as an endangered species, as an endangered oil, I don't support buying it anymore.
No, but I've got a very old bottle as well. It's a treasure, isn't it?
Yeah, and I don't know what I'm going to do when I run out of it.
No.
But anyway, I know that Dr. Ablard, she suggests purchasing alternatives to rosewood, such as whole wood, which also has a very high percentage of the component linalool. And she does stress that if you feel you absolutely have to have that bottle of rosewood oil, that you ask questions of the supplier regarding its sourcing. And it's important to ask your supplier questions to see if the wood's been sustainably managed, if it's been ethically harvested, and if they can produce proof of a permit issued by CITES. You mentioned CITES, which is the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species.
Yep.
And moving on to beloved frankincense on the left-hand side of your screen, there are serious sustainability issues with this. Probably because people who are native to the area where frankincense trees grow, they suffer terrific economic stressors such as drought, poverty, ethnic and tribal warfare. And so frankincense farmers, in order to feed their families and clothe their families, they, well, first of all, what they do to harvest frankincense is they make shallow cuts in the bark, which causes the sap to flow out and harden into resin tears, which you see as the white material forming on the bark of the tree. The economic instability that the farmers suffer, though, causes them to make more cuts than they normally would or should in order to extract as much tree resin as possible. And normally that would be seasonal harvesting. That allows for the trees to rest and regenerate, but now they harvest year-round. And that weakens the trees and eventually causes them to become ill and they die. Um, it's a huge problem because certainly we can understand the need to protect your family from starvation and to clothe them and get medical care, but over-harvesting the trees is a very short-term solution to a long-term problem.
It is.
So there are some retailers out there who work with frankincense co-ops now. And one of my favorites is Dan Riegler of Apothecary's Garden. He's based in Canada.
Yeah.
And he works very closely with some frankincense cooperatives in Africa. And in his words, I'm going to read a quote because I really liked this. Managers eliminate middlemen and represent the interests of the co-op from harvest to consumer. Cooperatives can educate growers and collectors to harvest in ways that maintain healthy plants, long-term growth, and optimum yield.
Very wise. That's very like the problems that were faced by vetiver, wasn't it? That the roots go so far down into the ground, sort of 8 meters sometimes, and they penetrate vertically. Mm-hmm. So when they bring up the vetiver root, it brings up an inordinate amount of soil because actually they plant them for soil erosion. And mm-hmm. as you say, because it's such a poor community that harvests them, they pull them up too early before they're ready, and it's kind of their pension really. And so they've got this substandard crop, poor essential oils coming from it, and actually ruining the floor. You know, the ground is completely eroding. And so the fair trade cooperative that were established in Haiti all put into place that they had to leave it there for much longer, and also had to replace the soil to make mm-hmm. sure that the erosion was not being damaged. And in return, they get sort of schools and roads and stuff built for them as a return for it. So it definitely works long term, doesn't it?
Yes, long-term solutions instead of short-term ones.
Mm. Very good.
Moving on from sustainability, moving on another hot button topic, which may threaten the future of aromatherapy, the possible regulation of essential oils. Now, in the United States, while the Food and Drug Administration does not grade or regulate essential oils, they do classify them as either a cosmetic, a drug, or both. So, for those unfamiliar with these classifications, I'll give you some examples. Mm-hmm. As a cosmetic, if you're using frankincense essential oil added to your facial cream to reduce the appearance of fine lines and wrinkles, like I do, then frankincense oil would be classified as a cosmetic. Now, if you add sweet orange oil to your shower gel to make it smell nice, again, classified as a cosmetic. If you add, though, frankincense oil to a capsule taken by mouth because you want to help fight the cancer you've just been diagnosed with, then the frankincense oil would be classified as a drug. Mm-hmm. Just like taking peppermint oil internally to help symptoms of inflammatory bowel syndrome, the peppermint oil would also be considered a drug. Now, in the third category, why or how would it be classified as both a cosmetic and a drug? Well, if you had a colicky baby and who had dry skin, and you decided that you were going to smooth a moisturizing lotion on the baby, which would help improve the look of the dry skin, and it contained fennel essential oil to help the colicky stuff, then it would be classified both as a cosmetic and a drug. Mm-hmm. Okay, now that seems pretty straightforward, right?
Mm-hmm. So far, so good.
Yeah, so where do people get into trouble? Well, when you make a claim that doesn't adhere to the Food and Drug Administration guidelines, then you're in violation of the law.
Correct.
The problem is that all professional aromatherapists and also many lay people know that aromatherapy is so much more than just something that smells pretty. Millions of people around the world use it daily for stress, anxiety, and skin formulas for medical concerns. But let's see. Okay.
Ooh.
Oh, no. Seems
Naughty.
have I missed a slide? Oh, yes, I did. So now, okay, we know oils are classified. What's the problem, and is there a problem? Okay. On the surface, the regulations do seem pretty clear, but there's a growing concern among aromatherapists, especially in the United States, that the federal government might step in to more closely regulate essential oils. And why are we concerned about that? Well, since essential oils have become mainstream, especially in the past 5 or so years, there are way, way, way more essential oil sellers, right? So it makes sense that with more sellers comes more of a chance of possibly violating FDA regulations. And secondly, companies, since there's so much competition, companies want you to buy their oils, right? So for many years, I think the Food and Drug Administration deliberately ignored more innocent claims like, hey, if you smell this lavender, if you're having trouble sleeping, sniff it half an hour before you go to bed, and then it'll relax you and you might be able to sleep better.
Mm-hmm.
I think those are pretty innocent claims, but as competition for customers increased, companies started to play the one-upmanship game. And I'll give you an example. Like seller A would say, well, our oils are organically produced and they're therapeutic grade. And seller B would say, well, oh yeah, well, our oils are clinical grade. And they're used in more hospitals than your oils.
Yeah.
So anyway, then claims started to fly pretty fast and furious. And they started saying oils could help with autism, infertility, asthma, cancer. And then in 2014, they even started saying that if you didn't want to catch Ebola, then just use our oils and they'll kill Ebola. Mm. And I think that was kind of the last straw for the Food and Drug Administration. They were like, whoa, enough. I think we've heard enough. So it was at that point that they sent warning letters out to 2 of the major companies. But they meant it not just for those 2 companies, but for all companies, that you cannot make medical or drug claims about your oil. And that included a company that I worked for at one time. And I got put in charge of revamping product descriptions on the website to remove anything that said can help with ADHD, could help, and then you have to say, could help you focus.
Yeah.
So you had to use clever language, but sometimes it was very challenging. I mean, if you had an essential oil blend that you knew and trials showed would work well for foot fungus, what are you going to say? What are you going to say?
Exactly.
It was very difficult to try and find language that would be FDA compliant, yet still convey what it was intended to do. Mm-hmm. So what happened then, I think, was absolutely brilliant marketing by the multi-level marketing companies. They developed dietary supplement lines that could be taken internally. So why did they do that? If a product is taken internally as a dietary supplement, you are allowed to make certain what's called structure function claims about your products. So what this means is you're promoting a nutrient or a dietary ingredient that affects the normal structure or function of the human body. And an example of this is on this slide. One of the multi-level marketing companies has come out with a product which helps, I don't know if you can see on the left-hand side of the screen.
I can, so they're allowed to say that then, if it's like a capsule.
Okay, yeah. It aids in the
I never knew that.
It soothes occasional stomach upset, reduces bloating, gas, indigestion. And here, under key ingredients and benefits, you see that there is, whoops, sorry about that. Oh, there we are. Sorry about that. It contains ginger root oil, peppermint, caraway, coriander, anise fruit, tarragon, and fennel. And over here under the description, more towards the center of the page, it contains those oils in a combination in a soft gel capsule. And so now, because it's a dietary supplement, they can make these claims. Whereas if you are a seller of essential oils and you sell the bottle, you cannot make those same claims, even if you know they will work in that way.
I did not know they could do that.
Yeah. Okay. Whoops. Sorry, I have a cursor that's very... Okay. So at any rate, let's see, let's just go back here one. The FDA also asks any companies that are going to make products like this and to promote claims like this. It requires hundreds of pages of studies and documentation. And the process of getting these supplements approved is very, very long and very, very expensive. And it just makes sense that the people who can do this are the people that are making lots and lots of money.
Sure.
And are the multi-level marketing companies. Okay. So, is more regulation coming? And if so, what will that mean for us as aromatherapists? Now, I think the majority of aromatherapists aren't terribly worried about the thought of more defined regulation coming, especially if they are educators who don't sell oils. Because if you do not sell products, you can pretty much say whatever you want to about them. You could even say it will kill Ebola.
I don't do that.
But the reason why those companies were sent warning letters was because they sell those blends and essential oils. So, and also aromatherapists who sell a product that was made as the result of a consultation with a private client, they are not subject to these rules because they're not selling the oil, they're selling a formulation or a blend that they made specifically for their client as part of the consultation. And many aromatherapists that I know are fond of saying, well, I'm not worried because you can't patent a plant after all. And that is true. However, plants, it's true that plants which grow in a wild or uncultivated state cannot be patented. That's true. But because they occur freely in nature. But an exception to this is so-called novel plants, meaning there are previously unknown varieties which can be propagated only by cutting or grafting, like roses. And as a matter of fact, many of us know about the beautiful peace rose. Mm-hmm. That is a rose that is patented.
Yes, that's right.
Because it was previously unknown as a cultivar, and so it was able to be patented. But for the most part, that's not going to happen with essential oils, which is good for us. But there is the reality of pharmaceutical or other companies patenting or licensing certain isolates that are found in essential oils or in these plants. And in fact, in clinical studies, isolates are preferred to the whole essential oil because isolates can be standardized, whereas essential oils never will be because of differences in climate, weather patterns, rain, amount of sunshine, elevation, altitude. So this actually, isolation and patenting of plant components has already happened. So it's not a theoretical thing. I think you know about this in your own work, that isolation of cannabis and hemp isolates, cannabidiols, has happened. And in fact, just recently, the US Food and Drug Administration approved the first CBD isolate.
Yeah.
That was manufactured into a pharmaceutical called Epidiolex, which is meant for 2 forms of seizure disorder. As well, another company is working on synthesizing the pain-relieving isolate mitragynine, which is found in the plant kratom. I don't know if you're familiar with kratom.
I don't know the plant. I've seen the isolate. I've seen information about the isolate, but I don't know the plant. No.
Yeah, kratom is grown. It's native to Southeast Asia, and for centuries, it was traditionally used in the rice fields to keep workers energized as they bent over and harvested rice hour after hour, day after day. It gave them both energy and relieved their pain. And the reason why this is such a big deal is because even though kratom is not an opioid itself, it does act on the same opiate receptors that opioids do.
Yep.
The mu receptors in the brain. So there are those who believe that the same people who wanted to make cannabis, hemp, and CBD a Schedule I drug, meaning that it would not be able to be purchased over the counter in the US. These are the same companies, mostly pharmaceutical companies, that want to isolate mitragynine from kratom and offer it as a treatment for opioid addiction. So
yeah, because what happens when you take opioids is you're quite right, it interacts with the mu receptor. But what the mu receptor also does is it says, right, okay, I'm bringing the pain down, but it also sets up this, but I want some more. I'm bringing the pain, but I want some more. I want some more. And so if they can get like a natural way of interacting with that receptor without using an actual opiate, then they could overcome addictions.
Right. And it's a wonderful plant. Well, in fact, one of our very well-known essential oil chemists and analysts, Dr. Rob Pappas, he has isolated beta-caryophyllene and offers it as a synergistic adjunct to his pain formula blend, and it works beautifully. So this is just another example how an isolate can be added in synergy to make something better than it was before. And in fact, I believe last year, Dr. Pappas launched the terpene division of Essential Oil University.
In fact, that's what his lecture's about, actually, how he went about doing these isolates and why. And obviously, he's put the Essential Oil University database up for free access for people. And it's earning its income through different means now, through Google Ads and things like that. But he's about to launch a whole set of information of which terpenes are in each different cannabis line and how they interact. Yeah,
I think that's fantastic. It's very forward thinking, very smart. And I think that he's positioned himself to become an industry forerunner in that way.
Definitely. He's a clever bloke, definitely.
I think that essential oil isolates are going to become far more commonplace in the future, and there's some specific reasons why.
I am undecided whether a good thing or not, though, Sue, I have to say.
Right.
Because the whole, especially with cannabis, for example, the each molecule depends on the other to make them work in different ways. And so when you take that synergy away, then the molecules don't work in the same way. And in some ways, I think that is partly what that's the difference between an essential oil having many main effects and a normal drug, normal in inverted commas, having side effects. Do you know what I mean? I think that the whole plant is what keeps its structure. I'm still not 100% sold on the isolates idea, I have to say.
Well, there are definitely pros and cons, Liz. You're absolutely right. And one of the cons of using solely isolates is that when you look at the problem with multi-drug resistant organisms, such as C. difficile, MRSA, vancomycin-resistant enterococcus, and others, it's because they're using a single isolate antibiotic against this organism. And one of the reasons that essential oils can be so very effective against pathogenic organisms is because all of the molecules work together in synergy.
Yeah.
And if you're going to isolate a particular component from an essential oil in order to treat a drug-resistant organism, then I think it's much more likely that the organism will be able to achieve resistance to that.
It's like going to war with just one weapon, isn't it? Whereas the essential oils have got so many different sort of types of artillery and soldiers coming from different directions. They're just going in with one knife, really, aren't they?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And so there are pros and there are cons. And one of the pros, I think, is if you take a look at this slide, I logged onto PubMed, which is part of a national...
My second home. My second home, that is, yeah.
I typed in essential oil and cancer into the search bar. And
how many came up?
1,041 articles.
That's not as many as I thought you were going to say, actually.
So clearly there's a lot of research into treating not only cancer, but many other medical conditions with essential oils, inflammatory bowel syndrome, multi-drug resistant infections. And it's certainly promising that this is happening, but there are some concerns which come to mind, which I'd like to talk about. And one of these concerns is we know that the standard Western medical community views complementary therapies as kind of woo-woo. And they demand to see scientific evidence of the claims that we make about aromatherapy. And the evidence that they're looking for is the gold standard randomized controlled trials, like the ones we talked about with my restless leg blend. So even when we present traditional Western medicine with well-designed studies that meet their criteria, they point out, and I think fairly, well, okay, that's great, but where's your follow-up studies, which duplicate these results and back up your conclusions? Now, it's kind of difficult to rebut that statement because, first of all, research studies cost a lot of money, yes, and most research institutions rely on money received either from governmental grants or from pharmaceutical companies.
Yep.
So if you're a pharmaceutical company, you're going to rely on money received from, I'm sorry, I'm lost my place. If you're a pharmaceutical company, you're going to give research money in the hopes that you're going to get something in return.
Exactly.
In other words, a product that you're going to be able to develop and market. So if they think that they're not going to be able to produce a product, then they're just not going to fund your research.
And also, I think it's relevant that they are not required to publish all of their papers. They only have to publish the ones that they want to show results of. So if there is a trial that doesn't come back with results that are to their favor, then we don't get to see it.
Right. That's also another concern, definitely. If there's, let's say that there is money available to replicate studies, and they give them to they give the money to the essential oil researchers, it's more likely than not that these researchers are going to use an essential oil from a different batch maybe from a different company, a different supplier. So you cannot completely 100% duplicate or replicate the results, because those essential oils will have variances in the amount of percentages of components. So,
or even just how long it was distilled for, something, there will be a difference, won't there?
Right. Now that's a pro of isolates, because it can be isolated and standardized to the same standard every time.
And I think it's important that they study in isolation, isn't it? You know, that they understand what it does on its own.
Mm-hmm. Because that's the truth. If you get a good result, how do you know if it's the alpha terpinolene? Is it the terpinin 4-ol? Is it what component is it that's exerting the effect that you want?
I think it's relevant as well that these trials that we're seeing, they're not looking to verify that clary sage will stop restless legs, for example. They take it as read that it does, because they've seen it in traditional medicine for a long time. They're looking to reverse and engineer and say, well, how does that happen? What's happening within the animal, because it's rarely a human, what's happening in the animal that's making that happen? We want to understand the human body. Actually, we not really that interested in how the essential oil worked. We want to know what the process was that was happening in the rat or the mouse or the rabbit, to be able to understand what's going on with that oil. But it's not necessarily about verifying that the oil does something in particular anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I know that many aromatherapists that I talk with are more negative than positive about isolates, and I just ask them to think about this. If you look back many centuries, the ancient Greek physician Hippocrates knew about the beneficial effects of chewing the bark of the white willow tree for pain relief, especially in childbirth. And for hundreds of years after, well, thousands of years after that, actually, people took willow bark. Either they chewed it, they took it in a tincture, made it into a tea to relieve aches and pains. But while the beneficial effects of willow bark were very well known, what was also well known all these years were the terrible oral and stomach effects that you got from taking white willow bark, either chewing it as a tea or in a tincture. So when I was researching this, I found a quote that was attributed to someone in the 1700s, I'm not sure who said, quote, "Taking the tincture of white willow bark is trading one devil for the other." So, now, about 125 years ago, German chemist Felix Hoffmann of Bayer Aspirin Pharmaceuticals, he synthesized aspirin in the laboratory for the first time, and his formula relieved pain just as well as white willow bark, but it eliminated most of the bad side effects associated with using the white willow bark tincture or bark. So laboratory synthesis isn't always a bad
Not all bad, no.
Yeah. So anyway, getting back to my original point, not to belabor it, but instead of using lemon essential oil in a study about its effects on ameliorating breast cancer, where the level of limonene, which is the component they're interested in, might vary from batch to batch or supplier to supplier, why not just use isolated limonene, which can be standardized?
Yep.
So these are two of our largest multi-level marketing companies, and in the interest of not either promoting them nor bashing them, I'm just going to use logos and not talk about names.
Well, you know, it shows, excuse me, it shows that we're from different countries, because I actually don't know which one's which. I can guess who they are supposed to be, but I don't know which one's which.
Oh, shall I say? Okay, well, the one on the left is Young Living.
Right.
And the one on the bottom right is doTERRA.
Very pretty logos.
Yeah. Well, see, I tried to be neutral anyway.
Well, that was neutral. They were talking facts.
Okay. Okay.
Scary
Whoops.
man.
Oh, I went too quickly, darn it.
That's not
You'll
good.
get to see my conspiracy theory in just a minute. Okay, so, well, we just discussed that there's often no money available for essential oil research, right? A lot of times. So if you think about that previous slide that I just showed you with the two major multi-level marketing companies, who do you think has the money to fund research? And indeed, it's those two companies.
Right.
And the companies shown in this slide are the research arms of those two largest essential oil companies.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at you can see that one of them belongs to Young Living. Whoops, oh gracious. And one of them belongs to doTERRA. So on the left is Young Living's research arm. On the right is doTERRA's research arm. Okay. Now, this is a very good thing, in my opinion. Anything that can bring essential oils into the forefront of medical research and treatments for patients that might have less serious and devastating side effects is a good thing, right? Is it always a good thing? That's questionable.
That's politics for you.
Yep. And here comes, dun, da, da, da.
Gosh, where did he come from?
All right, so this is where I'll probably be accused of being a conspiracy theorist, but please, please try and bear with me.
You are going to behave yourself, aren't you, sir?
Oh, yes, I am. Yep. It's polite and respectful.
Okay.
So let's say that company A employs researchers to find a formula that works well against a certain cancer. Okay, and lo and behold, they actually develop one that works well in clinical trials. This is terrific. And I agree with you.
We all benefit from that.
All of us will. So I'd imagine that that company, understandably, would want to patent that formula straight away and contract with a pharmaceutical manufacturer to develop it and sell it. Mm-hmm. And that's also completely understandable. So at that point, and what usually happens with a patent is that no other companies would be able to use similar formulations in their practices for the period of the patent. Mm-hmm. This has already happened with certain medications, pharmaceuticals, and continues to happen every day in the pharmaceutical industry, where a physician or a group would like to use a certain product, but they can't because it's licensed and patented. So they have to wait until the patent expires. So it's likely that such an essential oil formulation or product would only be able to be obtained by prescription, meaning that aromatherapy practitioners, unless they have a medical degree or if they work under the auspices of a physician, would be out of luck trying to access this particular formulation for their clients until the patent expires. Yep. You could call that crazy, but it just seems to me to be a logical extension of this research that's going on with essential oils.
It's not that dissimilar, and I haven't got my cannabis book in front of me to check the facts correctly, but cannabidiol at some point had a patent from the US government for neurological disorders. Mm-hmm. So you're quite right. There is a precedent for that, definitely.
Yeah. So it's a possible concern. Mm-hmm. So in case you think I've completely gone off the deep end here, I'll show you something else, which is I find this absolutely fascinating. In the United States, except for a few very forward-thinking centers which use aromatherapy like the Cleveland Clinic or the University of Maryland, complementary therapies are still viewed by mainstream Western medicine as mostly woo-woo. And positive effects, if they're acknowledged at all, are always chalked up to placebo. Oh yeah. It worked because you thought it was going to work. However, essential oils may now be coming to primary, mainstream Western care. If you take a look at this screen grab I have here, it comes from the website of Prime Meridian, which is a new direct primary care clinic proposed by and financed by one of the two largest multi-level marketing companies. It was introduced in Salt Lake City last month at their global multi-level marketing convention.
It's a clever idea.
Now, and again, in this screen grab, you take a look at the text here under the words essential oils and holistic research. It says, not only do we offer alternative healthcare, we're pushing the boundaries with extensive studies into the role that essential oils can play in delivering integrative care, which seeks to provide improved healthcare globally. So again, remember a couple of slides ago where I talked about the research arms that are funded by the multi-level marketing companies. The words extensive studies on the slide is where the research arms come into play. Mm-hmm. And I think that's absolutely brilliant, brilliant marketing, because
they've always been very clever.
Direct primary clinics aren't a brand new concept, as this particular company would have you believe. They've been operating in a number of locations across the US for the last, I'd say, 5 or so years. But those centers haven't been attached to any multi-level marketing companies. Direct primary care centers are really an admirable model because they stress health education and preventative care, frequent check-ins with a health coach that's assigned just to you. And in exchange, you give them a monthly fee. Okay, so the problem is that the model for direct primary care clinics is unsustainable due to cost considerations, and already many across the United States have closed in markets like Las Vegas, Nevada, and even in Hartford, Connecticut, near where I live. In order to be successful, these corporations need a large population base who will pay the monthly subscription fee to help support the operating costs of the clinics. So therefore, most of those clinics are located in highly populated urban areas like Las Vegas and Hartford. But a significant percentage of folks who live in these areas use governmental assistance to live on and to get their health care from. And these clinics do not accept governmental assistance, which there's the problem. You've got the numbers of people who will support the clinic, but they don't have the disposable income to pay a monthly fee to these clinics. So they just can't sustain operating costs and they close. However, though, with the backing of the billions of dollars in assets that are available to the multi-level marketing companies, Prime Meridian clinics may indeed be able to absorb and offset any operating cost losses. In addition, they sell the oils at the clinic, but they are specific to that particular company, of course, which, you know, it's understandable.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of the direct primary care model. And again, I think that anything that brings essential oils into the forefront of medical care is a wonderful thing. The only negative that I can see here is that the model comes with no other alternative but to use that company's essential oils.
Yeah, it's a monopoly, isn't it?
Right. So I contacted Prime Meridian actually to find out more about who is going to be doing their essential oil education part of their clinic experience. But as of airtime here today, I haven't received a reply.
Oh.
It's most likely that the licensed providers like MDs, DOs, APRNs, PAs, they'll be providing the standard medical care. But I'm betting, and I may be incorrect, but I'm betting that the ones providing the actual essential oil education will not be the high level providers because they simply don't have the training or the time to do it.
No.
I expect that the multi-level
Yeah,
marketing
or the
companies
money, really. That's an expensive outlay, isn't it?
well, right. I expect that they'll develop standard protocols and disseminate those out to the clinics for their ancillary staff, meaning their health coaches and assistants will follow.
Well, yeah, it's a franchise, isn't it? So they'll just have low level staff that are just educated in that specific sector that they have to provide. That's all.
And whether or not the information that they disseminate will follow safe aromatherapy practices, I think that remains to be seen as of yet because none of the clinics are open yet. They have contracted one in Utah and one in Nashville, Tennessee, but neither have opened yet. They're enrolling clients.
We should ring them up, Sue, see if they want some staff.
I actually thought about that.
I've got my recruitment consultant head on now.
It would be really, really interesting. But I don't, I don't go with just any one company. I go with the oil and not who sells it. Yeah. So they probably wouldn't welcome me as a consultant turned employee. But anyway, this speaks to, again, a bigger problem for practitioners of aromatherapy in the US who practice clinical aromatherapy. And especially if you're one who's trained in aromatic medicine or internal dose forms. And we talked a little bit about that before. We said that internal dose forms are intended to act as health-sustaining or medical treatments, and therefore they're classified as what? A drug. If you're not a licensed provider who has prescriptive authority, now I'm a licensed registered nurse, but I can't write prescriptions because I'm not an advanced practice nurse. So if I were to make a formula and market it and say that this is going to help with your symptoms of inflammatory bowel, I would be practicing medicine without a license, and I would be in the United States, that could be classified either as a misdemeanor or a felony crime. So depending on how bad you are. But what can one do about that? What can aromatherapy practitioners do? Well, some aromatherapy practitioners now choose to contract legally with licensed medical providers like MDs, osteopaths, APRNs, any people that have prescriptive authority. The aromatic practitioner designs a formulation and a treatment plan and then submits it to the licensed practitioner who looks it over and says, yes, I think this is great, or what about this? And then they write a prescription for it. So at that point, you can legally practice aromatic medicine. However, there are few physicians who will do this in the US because, as we've talked about at great length, complementary therapies aren't mainstream and they aren't accepted. And physicians have to carry malpractice insurance, which is generally it's in the six figures for malpractice insurance. So they would have to, I think an aromatherapy practitioner would be, it would be very important for them to market themselves very carefully to practitioners, to show them that you know what you're talking about, you've been trained in it, you will do everything necessary to make sure that the patient follows both standard Western medicine prescriptions that the doctor prescribes for them and the ones that you're going to do as well. There's at least one aromatherapy school in the States which has a system in place for this. Her program hasn't begun yet, but it has already engaged and contracted with physicians who are willing to contract with students during their aromatic medicine training and internships, and will continue to be available for graduate practitioners of the program. I think that's wonderful.
Who's that then, Sue? Who's doing that?
That's Anna Doxey.
I thought it probably was. Yeah, very clever.
Yep, Institute of Holistic Phytoaromatherapy, I think it is.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that if that comes to pass, that would be fabulous. And I would love to do that myself. Yeah. So, but this begs the question here, and that question is then, if you are going to practice as a clinical aromatherapist, should you be licensed? And should aromatherapy be regulated in order to be recognized as an authentic profession? So I think in order to answer such a question, it depends on many factors. And clearly there are multiple pros and cons to be considered with licensure. And if you want to know about the path to licensure, just ask any massage therapist. If you talk to one who went to school before massage therapists were licensed in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, in the worst cases, clients would ask their therapist for favors of an intimate variety.
For extras.
But at best, therapists were unable to bill a client's insurance for massage treatments. And they still may have trouble doing that in some cases, but massage therapists now are licensed, regulated, and they've gained the respect of the general populace and others in their profession. And in the United States, the same cannot be said of aromatherapy. So the pros of licensure would be professional respect and recognition, being able to bill clients so you could actually make money and not have to work 2 or 3 jobs on the side. But the cons to licensure and regulation are obtaining and maintaining a license, getting continuing education credits, possible governmental interference like we talked about before, and the demands on your time outside of your actual practice.
Insurances.
And yes, absolutely. So, I mean, I would feel better myself and more comfortable calling myself a clinical aromatherapist if there were firm minimum educational guidelines and standards and a standardized examination, which could give you board certification. Okay. So both of the U.S. professional aromatherapy organizations, the Alliance of International Aromatherapists and the National Association for Holistic Aromatherapy, they both have standard educational guidelines on their websites, but those are for professional memberships. It's not regulating aromatherapy. There is one organization that does already sponsor a standardized examination, which assures at least minimum competency as an aromatherapist, and that's the Aromatherapy Registration Council. And if you take and pass their examination, you can call yourself a registered aromatherapist, of which I'm one. Now, it's taken massage therapy over 60 years to go from a non-standardized and unregulated industry to today, where they command professional respect and recognition. So I imagine that it's going to take aromatherapy at least that long. I don't know if it will even happen in my lifetime. I hope so, but it's going to require a lot of us who will dedicate ourselves and make a concerted effort to bring it about. And like I said, I don't think it's going to happen in my lifetime, but I hope you all prove me wrong.
Well, I think if anything, it's possibly moving faster over here than it is over there, and maybe that's because the majority of us, our diploma includes massage. So, so my diploma is in aromatherapy, massage, and anatomy and physiology. So perhaps yeah, perhaps it's more complex than yours, but I think that we have professional respect over here now, but that's only been in the last sort of 5-10 years that I've seen that.
Right. And I hope it comes here too, because I've even thought about relocating to be able to practice freely and be professionally respected.
Yeah.
But I've got a kid in college, so
yeah,
that's not happening.
No.
And I think finally, to turn to the last part of my talk, I'd like to turn to another trend in aromatherapy. People have become more interested in home distillation of plant material for either the essential oil or the hydrosol the plant will provide. And for the home enthusiast, there are a lot of options to choose from. There are stills made from various materials, and which come in a number of sizes and also cost. The type of still you choose will determine the level of education that you need in order to safely operate it.
Yes.
And it ranges from absolutely no special knowledge necessary to a very good understanding of both physics and chemical properties of plants and distillation. So let's talk about home distillation. And why will we not go to the next slide?
Look. Oh, lots of stills.
Okay. So this
Check that out. I've never seen one like that.
This little critter is called the EOS still. It was formerly known as the Aromator, and Dr. Pappas has talked about this unit. It's a tabletop device. It's very small. It's only about 9 inches wide by 9 inches deep by about a foot tall. And it's been in development for several years, and it's not quite yet available to consumers. It operates on a similar principle to the Keurig coffee machine, where you take pods that contain plant material, add water, plug it into the machine, you press that round button in the center, and in 10 minutes you get essential oil and hydrosol.
Wow.
And it operates on standard household current, so you just plug it into your wall socket. And they are making one both for standard 120 volt in the US and also one for the UK.
I need one of those now.
So anyway, so you take a cup, which is polypropylene plastic. It's filled with plant material. You add water to the reservoir, you insert it into the device, and then you press that button. And it heats the water to steam in order to extract the essential oil and the hydrosol. It requires no special knowledge or background at all because it's pretty easy to operate. And the suggested retail price will be around $300 US. There are a wide variety of botanicals that will be available for the still, for the pods, I should say. And you will even have the option of growing your own material, harvesting it, and then filling the pods with your own. It's very fast and efficient. As I said, the cycle time is about 10 minutes. And after the distillation, it has a self-cleaning cycle.
That's it, I'm sold. If it cleans itself, that's it.
Yeah, well, these are the pros, and there are many pros. There are a couple of cons to consider, though, and I think one of them...
I don't want to hear them. I want that. What are the cons?
Okay, I got
What are the cons?
Okay. The pods are polypropylene plastic. It's a thermoplastic polymer. The company claims that they're recyclable, but one of the main criticisms that have been levied against the Keurigs are that landfills are filling up with millions and millions of these used Keurig pods, right? So the company's trying to figure out some way to deal with this, again, talking about sustainability, to talk about sustainability concerns. So they claim that this polypropylene is recyclable, but we don't really know, because the unit isn't available yet, if that's going to turn out to be so in practice. Another concern that I have, and I have not seen a firm answer to this question. Will the plastic tubing that's contained in the inner mechanism of the still, will it become impregnated with the scent of prior distillations? Now, I know it does have a self-cleaning cycle, but will it completely remove the scent of something very strong?
Wow, you think things through very carefully. I did never got there.
Well,
but it's a valid point.
I think it's a great thing.
It's a contaminant, isn't it? If you're not careful.
If oils do become regulated, I mean, think back to my spy slide, and they are not available except to certain companies or licensed professionals, then this will be perfect for people. They can make their own. Okay, so that's the EOS still. The next one, these are already available. A lot of people use them. Our tabletop steam distillation units. And they also are pretty compact. They don't require a great deal of specialized knowledge or information to operate safely. This unit retails for around $200, and you can get wonderful distillations out of it, both essential oil and hydrosol.
It looks so sciencey, doesn't it? I need to see those. They just look like you've got a serious lab going on.
Now, wait till you see this one. Oh no, that's 2 slides from now, but wait. Okay. So these are our
There's my still. That's what my still looks like.
Gorgeous, beautiful copper alembic stills.
Beautiful.
They're lovely to look at, and many people prefer distilling in copper. They prefer what they get rather than stainless steel or glass. And these stills run from very, very tiny, about 3 liters, to very large, over 300 liters.
Mine's smaller than that. Mine's 0.5 liters.
Really?
Sandra Schuff picked it up and she was laughing at it. She was going, I've never seen anything so funny. It's so small. It's really, really little. Yeah.
Baby.
But it looks just like that. And my heart aches with love for it. I just love it so much. It's so beautiful.
I can understand why people name them.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yes.
I can understand that. I mean, I can't see naming that or that.
Oh, I don't know. The white one, the white one, I definitely could give that one a name. I don't think the sciencey one's ever going to be me, though.
Now, these do have a learning curve and, and some specific safety considerations, but not an awful lot. And both professionals and home enthusiasts alike enjoy using these beautiful stills. And maybe when my daughter gets out of college, I'll get one for myself too.
Oh, honestly, Sue, they're just, the oil that comes out of copper is just different and more beautiful. It has this deeper resonance somehow. It is just beautiful.
Now this creature, dun, da, da, da.
CO2.
If you are very serious about home distilling.
I'm very rich. These are super expensive, aren't they?
Yeah. You can try doing your own CO2 extractions at home. This is called the Super C, Supercritical Fluid Extractor, which uses carbon dioxide in that cylinder here in the back of the photo. Uses carbon dioxide as a solvent to extract botanicals. The unit is really still not very big. It's only about 1.5 feet wide.
They're not very big.
It weighs 37 pounds. It has a 1 ounce plant capacity, and you can optionally expand that to 4 ounces of plant material. Besides purchasing the unit itself, the user is required to purchase carbon dioxide in cylinders and lubricating material. And this one retails for about $4,000.
And that's cheap because I've seen them for 4,000 English pounds. So you should snap that one up because that was cheap at half the price. They are a lot of money, aren't they? I would love one.
Yeah. Who wouldn't? The runtime is longer than with steam distilled, the tabletop steam distilled unit. It varies the time to extract botanicals varies from about 60 minutes to 90 minutes. The machine does run on standard household current, though. You don't need any special kind of generator. But this one does require much, much more setup, care, and education on the part of the operator. First, in order to maximize extraction, it's recommended that you have to prepare the plant material first. You have to grind it to a certain size in order to get the maximum extraction of plant material. And depending on what material you're using after the extraction, you may still need to do another vacuum extraction or an ethanol extraction if you want to remove certain plant waxes, pigments, or something like that. The unit can be very challenging to clean, and it requires
I don't want it.
Yeah, very careful, regular maintenance is required. But
I can't even clean the juicer, so I can't do that.
Yeah, this one's too much for me. But
yeah.
and another thing about this unit is the level of education required to use it. You have to choose appropriate temperature and pressure settings.
Yeah, because the different for select and total isn't it? It's the different levels of pressure. It's a state, isn't it, between liquid and gas? So you have to get it exactly in the right temperature parameter.
So in order to obtain the best yield, you have to not only prepare the material correctly, you have to look at many protocols to find out what's the best temperature, the best pressure settings in order to get the best yield. So it's not like the tabletop unit where you pop in the pod, pour the water, push the button, and there's your...
Too sciencey for me. Too sciencey. If they made it in copper, I would consider it.
Yeah.
It's not very pretty.
Now this brings us to the end of my presentation.
Well, my head's exploding. You have made me think of a lot of things. So that was really, really interesting. That's very odd now, what you've done there.
What?
That's better. That was really, really interesting. And it's very thought-provoking. Very, very clever work. So I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah.
So I want to know a little bit about the Aroma Bridge, because that's your blog, yes?
Yes, it is.
So I'm sure that people will want to continue to follow you because you come up with some very thought-provoking ideas. So tell us about Aroma Bridge.
Oh, thank you. Aroma Bridge is a not-for-profit. We don't sell anything. We don't have any affiliate links. Aroma Bridge is comprised of Christina Smith and myself. She is my partner in crime, so to speak. And let's see, how do I get back to full screen just with you, Liz?
Try going up to the top of the screen. There should be stop share.
Aha!
There you go.
That's much better. Now, can I shut this down? Yes. Okay. Yeah, Aroma Bridge started out of a desire to bridge the gap, as it were, between standard Western medicine and or allopathic medicine and complementary therapies. I think, especially in the US, as we talked about, one is seen as the gold standard and the other is crazy, woo-woo, placebo, and all that. Now, we know that that's not true, and there's actually more common ground than either side believes.
Yeah.
Because the complementary people often think that standard allopathic medicine is big pharma who's designed to try and ruin our health and rip us off, and and that also may not be true. Okay, so anyway, so that's why we started Aroma Bridge, because we wanted to show that there is common ground, and often more than we think, and we can incorporate both in order to live our most healthy lifestyle. So we write articles, we do research. There are a number of really, really good articles on there that have been written both by Christina and myself. Also, we share what we think is really good material from other aromatherapists and practitioners. And we do have plans to expand in the future to include, I don't know if you've ever seen Saturday Night Live, the program, the comedy program in the US.
Yeah.
They used to have something years ago. Those of us who are older will remember the point counterpoint session, and they would have a split screen, kind of like you and I right now. And the person on the left would espouse one viewpoint, and the person on the right would espouse the complete opposite viewpoint. And it was done very comedically and very funny. Mm-hmm. But we want to do this with an allopathic practitioner on one side and the complementary practitioner on the other, and have them. Yeah. So we have plans to do that. We've got a couple of physicians lined up who are willing to be part of this. And that's really what we are. So if you would like to follow us, we'd really appreciate your support.
How do people find you?
On Facebook, we are AromaBridge. Mm-hmm. And the blog itself is aromabridge.wordpress.com.
Okay, that's brilliant. So that was fascinating. Thank you so much. Really good.
I hope I made sense.
You completely made sense. You did.
I know a lot of your viewers are going to say, okay, that conspiracy theory was a little out there, but I don't think it's really that out there.
I don't think anybody would say that. I don't think. I think that the maybe the idea was spun, but we never. It's like sliding doors, isn't it? You never know where it's going to go, whether it'll go the right way or the wrong way for us. But I think being aware of what could happen makes sure we have our eyes on the ball a bit more, and that's important.
Right, I agree.
Mm. Thank you so much for such a thought-provoking talk and for all your time today. Thank you ever so much.
It was a delight, and I'm honored that you asked me. Thank you.
Bless
and
you.
Best of luck with your symposium. I can't wait to hear and see everybody.
Well, it's going to be amazing, and obviously by the time people see this, they'll have listened to a lot of people and hopefully be enjoying it as much as I am doing, making it with people like you.
Thank you.
Say bye-bye, Sue.
Okay. Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.